All right, so glad you could join us on the Weather Network. It is time for In the Know, a very special segment because we're talking about some stormy conditions. Lake Erie, Nadine, angry.
Very much so. That was a previous scene. We saw those winds picking up from yesterday.
Indeed.
Today they're going to be quite blustery. This is the effect in the Oakville area where we have some of those branches down. If they bring down power lines, you do have to be careful with that too.
All right, our Storm Center coverage continues here, and we're going to bring in Mark Robinson momentarily, but we want to first of all show you, this is a webcam. So there's the radar around Mount Forest. This is what it's been looking like this morning. So already poor conditions in Nadine. As we go a little further east along Highway 89 there, we see that it's not as bad yet, but we expect with the roving conditions, things will get worse.
Yeah, it's going to be back and forth with these bands pushing into the GTA too. Certainly producing some reduced visibility with those brief bursts of snowfall through the afternoon and into the evening as well. So we're going to have to watch the drive for us over the next few hours. Take us into our Friday, Chris.
Yeah, take a look at like tomorrow morning from Midland and Collingwood, Barrie down to Oshawa, Hamilton, Kitchener-Waterloo, up towards Kincardine. So again, roving bands. This will impact Highway 400, the 404, 6, 8, and 10, sections of the 401, and even the QEW right along the shores of Lake Ontario. So we don't expect as much snow here, but with the poor visibility, rough travel. But north and east in the traditional snowbelt areas, pretty nasty. So now let's cue Mark Robinson. Mark, how's it looking so far?
Well, Chris, you know, I'm watching my camera and we're getting like very calm winds and all of a sudden it'll gust up and the camera just sort of tilted ever so slightly to the side there. So definitely a good example of how windy it is out here. But you add in those low temperatures and that wind chill kicks back in. And I had a few of my neighbors saying, you know, they would have appreciated just a little bit more of a warning that winter was about to land on us. You know, winter, we went from fall straight into winter less than 24 hours. And yeah, that's just because that cold air wrapping around the low. And we've got wide open lakes, and that means we're going to see some snow squalls as we get into the afternoon.
Yeah, I know, Mark, these bands could be quite intense for us in the GTA, but certainly that's associated with that strong low-pressure system up across northern Ontario, Chris.
Yeah, we have, and we've actually had a long stretch of Highway 11 from Cochrane all the way to Long Lac. That is 424 kilometers of highway closed in a stretch in Nadine, and then adjacent areas, the 101 around Chapleau and Wawa. So northern Ontario still dealing with a storm that began 36 hours. Southern Ontario, as Mark, you will attest to, it's the next 36 hours that will be very interesting and dicey.
Yeah, definitely. So if you're going to be driving, especially along the 401 this time, normally we often talk about the 400 with the squalls that come across the 400, and that can really mess up. Everyone's sort of used to that. But this time, I'm looking a little more at the 400 or the 401 region, sort of that Woodstock down to London, maybe even further to the east, as these squalls sort of sit in and just wrap themselves around that low and sit right over top of one of our main transportation routes. But these things are going to be really interesting because they're going to be, I'm going to say, laser focused, very tight ones that are you're going to go from clear to full on whiteout in 30 seconds. So just be aware that could be a bit of a dicey drive over the next couple of days.
All right, so be safe, Mark, and certainly that's where the hazard comes in. You see the deeper blues closer to the shores of the lakes to Huron and Georgian Bay. That's where we have the heavier accumulations, but certainly into the GTA. Because those winds are driving in, we've got those widespread 70K for us in the GTA, but around the Prince Edward County region, perhaps up to 90K.
So there'll be a bit of a lull in the wind come Saturday afternoon, but then another snow system comes in Saturday night and Sunday. Oh, and by the way, there's a chance of thunder snow today as well in the squalls.